Married people of Reddit, what was the biggest waste of money at your wedding? The party favors. Some people have pens made or matchbooks, little bottles of bubbles. We had little things of candy. Nobody took them. My sister and her husband gave out jars of homemade pickles. Everyone was so drunk near the end, so I ended up with several jars. It was great. My husband and I belong to different strong cultures. I'm Indian and he's Japanese. We got married twice because of this, once in India and once in Japan. In India we spent a bomb on everything, the clothing, the place, the food, and there were a huge bunch of people that I'd never even met in my life, but that's how Indian weddings go. My family spent around $40,000. This is because it's them who insisted on this kind of wedding even though my husband and I didn't want it. It was tiring and stressful too. It went on for around 12 hours. Everyone probably had fun but us. In Japan, we went to this shrine on a hill with 4 of our friends and his family, just mum, dad and sis, and we got married traditionally there, an hour or so. We then went a few kms down to a clearing and had a barbecue with cute wine next to a stream while overlooking the whole town at sunset. It was the best thing I had ever experienced and I really don't understand why we waste all that money on real weddings. Those Indian weddings are scarily expensive and big. My former flatmate was Indian and told me about how she had 2 Indian wedding ceremonies, one for the husband's family, one for hers. In total they had to take care of 600 plus guests and paid ridiculous amounts of money for all that. I think it was close to being 6-figured. Dang centerpieces. So pointless, but you have to have them for some reason. Hubby and I were fine with spending on a nice venue and good food, wine and things people actually enjoy, but we went bare minimum for centerpieces. Seriously, has anyone ever left a wedding thinking wow those centerpieces were really something? Had a small wedding and reception with 20 family members and close friends. The reception was at a restaurant in a back room. The menu got screwed up because they switched chefs between us signing a contract and the wedding. We decided to not have dessert, but it was served anyway. They also served carafes of wine that were not all finished, which is why we said no carafes. The bill was several $100s more than we expected. We just wanted to have a fun time, so we just let it slide. Chair covers. £3.50 each seems reasonable. Then for some reason you need 250 chairs for 180 guests, £875. Would you like someone to dress the chairs? Always seems to total £1,000. To rent chair covers. NB. I always make sure to comment when I see chair covers now, because I know. This is one thing my wife was adamant that she did not want at the wedding. I don't have any particular feelings about chair covers one way or the other, but I'm glad to know we dodged a £1,000 bullet. Just got engaged, and trying to figure out how to budget for a wedding is insane. Everything costs way too freaking much. Hurts more because we're paying for it ourselves. Married 18 years. The photographer sucked. After the first year of marriage, I never looked at the pictures again. One thing we did right, though, was only have wine and beer because I come from heavy drinkers and there was no way I was paying for everyone to get all fricked up and fight. Photographer sucked. 9 times out of 10 that's because the wedding couple went for the cheapest photographer possible. My wife and I were content taking a cab from our wedding venue to the hotel. My Phil rented a $650 stretch limo for a 5-mile ride. I remember renting a limo last minute. We had been looking at renting a Harley trike but was more expensive and complicated than we thought it would be. I paid less than $300 and it fit the whole wedding party, and photographer took us to where we had our photos taken, and then onto the reception. It was great. We tried to keep costs down so did not invite any cousins to the wedding. My aunt asked that we made an exception for her daughter and her partner as it would be a good opportunity for his to meet some of her family. I gave in. I did not speak with my cousin or her partner. Her parents said hello in passing and that was it. They gave one gift between the 4 of them and it was a single duvet cover with no pillowcase. To cap it all, I did not get an invitation to their wedding. I got married recently and we had a mix of going the whole hog and cheaping out. My suit was an off the peg. Her dress wasn't a wedding dress. Just a nice dress that looked somewhat bridal. We just bought a bunch of big cakes from a cake shop, not a proper wedding cake, so we saved thousands. However, we spent fat stacks on venue, a sort of club bar event place in a disused Victorian foundry, catering, amazing 3 courses, coffee, quite a lot of free drink, and entertainment DJ, band, photo booth, table magician, face painting. So it still ended up costing a lot of money. Regarding the things we prioritized on, no regrets. As a day night, fun wise, it was pretty freaking great. I know nobody would say your wedding was crap, but the effusiveness of the comments about how fun people thought it was amazing. A lot of lovely comments, even from acquaintance obligation guests about how much they enjoyed everything. If you don't have much money to spend, it doesn't matter. Our actual legal wedding was the registry office with our parents and going for lunch on a different day, and it was lovely. But if you do, then you can make it a pretty freaking cool party. The thing we cheaped on and I regret is photographer. She was a family friend and had studied photography but wasn't a pro, so maybe a risk, but was pretty rubbish, and all the photos made it look like we were stressed and hated each other. Luckily my brother is a hobby photographer with some talent and took a load of nice ones. The biggest waste? I really don't know. I'm kind of glad we splurged on the fun stuff. We did order far too much evening food, but I made goddamn sure that I took it all home in a big box when they tried to make out like it had to go in the bin. We went pretty all in on our wedding. Saved for a few years, paid for it all ourselves. Wedding was at a ranch, had pony rides for the kids, a kids buffet on top of the regular food, 130 guests, all the usual things. Spent about 25k if you include dress, rings and whatnot. 5 years later so far, still one of the best days of our lives. Would do it all exactly the same, save for maybe not inviting the people I now know didn't show up. For me it was the cake, but my husband wanted to splurge on that as we saved so much elsewhere. £250 for a 2-tier, lopsided cake that she decorated terribly compared to what we talked about, which wasn't even that complicated. Just a simple white buttercream iced cake with small dot details. I was really disappointed, and to make it worse, we could have gotten a much better version of the cake for £80 from the vendor I originally wanted to go with. At least it tasted alright. My last wedding cost $900, and I ended up winning $700 in Las Vegas during the honeymoon, so it really only cost $200. I can't complain about anything. We went to the JP and just had a handful of people there. We then went back to our house and had lunch with everyone. The biggest waste was probably the whole pitcher of unsweet iced tea I made for my dad, and he didn't drink any of it, even though he insisted that was what he wanted. I for sure wasn't going to drink it because I'm pure southerner and only drink my iced tea sweet. I didn't pay for anything but her ring, and I am still with her. For divorced guys, I would think men would say her ring. Going through my second divorce now, I got the ring back both times. The first time I was able to sell it for pretty close to what I paid for it. The second one I haven't done anything with yet, but most likely will do the same. Or maybe we'll hold on to it and use the stone in another ring, should I ever decided to do something stupid again. We had a pretty restrained ceremony and reception. I think my mum spent more money on her shoes than the ceremony as a whole. Everything but the certificate itself. Original plan was to have my old roommate bake the cake and have a party in the park. My mom wasn't having that and paid for a ceremony and 2 receptions. Maybe 3 of my friends were there between the 2 receptions, and I didn't know even a quarter of the people on the guest list. I smiled, said the polite things, and would not do it that way again if I could do it over. I didn't know even a quarter of the people on the guest list. My wedding ended up being a family reunion for older folks. My friends were there too, but I was amazed with the amount of distant relatives and old friends my parents had. My dress. Granted, I didn't pay for it, my mum did, but it was so unnecessarily expensive I wish I'd chosen something cheaper. Plus I paid an extra grand for alterations. Over a year later I still think about it. I haven't even had it cleaned and preserved because it would cost so much. So it hangs in its bag in our house with dirt on the bottom. Probably the biggest guilt of my life RN. Everything else was wonderful though. We saved money where we could and ended up with an awesome wedding. If having paid a lot of money for a gorgeous wedding dress is the biggest guilt you have in life, you have a pretty awesome life, Redditor. Don't feel guilty and enjoy it. It really depends on your view of what's important, but if you're only interested in being actually married, then almost everything. Suit rental, wedding dress, rings, reception etc. It's all a big nothing really. I'm married, and just wanted to be married. I don't regret spending a lot of money on everything, but I would have been equally as happy getting married in our local registrar's office, and then saying to everybody when meeting up in this bar, everybody come here, or don't, it's your choice. That would have cost less than £500 easily, I believe. We did ours on the cheap and it still cost close to 10k, which for us is a huge amount of money. My personal wedding ring costs £25, plain titanium band, and it means everything to me. It doesn't matter if things cost £1 or £1 million, it's what it means to you. Again, not a knock on people who want to spend the money and have a big day. Good on you, honestly. But if you really don't mind all that much, just get married and be happy. We had a private ceremony and barely spent anything. If I had to pick, it would be all the alcohol we drank while bar hopping after. We eloped and I insisted on no frills. Went to Vegas, bought rings at a pawn shop right before the ceremony. It was a total blast and we're about to celebrate 8 years of marriage. I understand why people have big weddings, but I will never regret the way we did it. That sounds like so much fun. That's what I want. Wife flew in all her friends and family to San Francisco from Japan, business class, 14 people. I asked why can't you just fly them economy. She was appalled that I even asked. Oh well, her money. Yeah, I would have offered to pay for the ticket, and if they wanted to upgrade their seats then so be it. I can understand not wanting to fly economy all that way though. I just did a west coast to east coast and back again trip for my friend's wedding. I'm 6'2" inches and the 5 hours one way in economy was the total sick. Can't imagine doing it all the way from Japan and back, lol. We did a really simple backyard BBQ wedding. Been together 10 years, not a whole lot of pomp needed. We bought a bunch of beer and maybe a third of it was light cheap beer. No one drank it, so we were left with a bathtub of PBR. Not the worst thing, but it took me 3 months to drink it all. One thing I'm glad we didn't spend money on was a videographer. It was briefly discussed, but we never did it because the photographer was expensive enough as it was. And in retrospect, I think that was a good choice because I know we'd never watch the video. The pictures are enough. If you want a good, well put together wedding with reliable vendors, it's gonna cost money. I'm not sure on what the biggest expense was for mine that we could have cut. DJ was $1,300. Photographer was $2k, and the country club was $50 head for dinner, including the ceremony. If I had to pick, maybe wedding cake though. We bought 3 sheet cakes from Sam's Club and people devoured them and said they were phenomenal. Saved us hundreds. Good call on the cake. We had a family friend make our wedding cake as their wedding gift, but I knew there wouldn't be enough for everyone, so I ordered cupcakes from our local grocery store, a chain store, simple chocolate and vanilla, and everyone loved it. My entire first wedding, TBH, second wedding, no money was wasted. We spent about $2,000 and didn't tell our guests it was our wedding. Our combined age that year equaled 69, and the 1st of April is 2 days after her day, and 2 days before mine. So we threw a joint day party for our 69th birthday on April Fool's Day. Had it at a good local restaurant out on their patio. Provided our own wine and beer. Walked in and surprised everyone by getting hitched by our friend who is a pastor. No DJ or band, just a dope playlist. Worth every penny. Our venue was really good. We got a great deal on the food and all the extras at cocktail hour, sushi bar, mashed potato bar, infused vodka, and so on. And it was only $100 pp, which, in North New Jersey, is quite the steal for the quality. I'd say the biggest waste of money and time was the custom favors I made. Jesus, it took forever and they were adorable, but I can't help but think it would have been 1,000 times less stressful if I just bought some cheap, cliché favors. For us it was the venue itself. Originally we planned on 100 people, Figured at least 80 would make it. Only 60 made it. So our venue seemed so huge and empty when it really shouldn't have felt that way. Yes, I stopped myself from inviting some people because I have a small guest list and then some did not even show up or cancelled last minute, so rude. I end up having a smaller wedding, around 80-100, and felt a little sad. To be honest, I think it was my wife's tiara. Not because it was expensive, like $5 to $7, but because she forgot it in the car when we went to the courthouse. We woke up one morning and decided that that was going to be the day. We called our parents and told them that we were getting married and that we would call them later when the judge signed our waiver to see if a different judge would marry us. After we got the license and the waiver, we went to buy her a dress, and while we were shopping she found a tiara. Wasn't even that pretty, and I just told her to take it if she wanted. I didn't care what she wore. We made an appointment with the court to actually get married and we took the judge's last sport for the day. That was a good day. The wedding. It wasn't worth the drama and it didn't even feel like my wedding. We didn't pay for it, but I would have preferred to elope and use the wedding funds towards a nice honeymoon and pay off our various debts. The favors gifts, keep it simple. Flowers. Like 90% of them went in the trash that night. Like $1,000 plus. Rentals. Silverware. By the time you add it all up, you could have purchased half decent sets at Walmart and sold, kept, donated them. Tablecloths. Buy some, they are cheap and you can use them for years. When it comes to rentals, keep this in mind. Even if it costs more, you may be able to save some money if you buy it then resell it. Dress. Rings. You save a lot of money if you opt for silver. For your information, diamonds are actually cheap in reasonable size if you don't mind non-top-notch clarity. It doesn't directly answer the question, but I just want to be one voice defending the big wedding. It's not for everyone, and if you can't afford it, I would never in a million years advise you to stretch yourself to make it happen. But I loved every moment of our wedding. It was pretty expensive, but we didn't short ourselves on any of the vendors or experiences we wanted, and it was honestly one of the most fun evenings I've had. We were featured in a magazine, which kind of validated the hard work and kept the buzz alive a little longer. I think there are some aspects that you either go big or go home, more with the sentiment of buy it nice or buy it twice, without the option of buying it a second time, like food or photographer. For those about to or thinking of embarking on this journey, if you don't have the funds to make it easy and pleasant, this will be one of the worst experiences of your life. Almost guaranteed. Family crap always comes up. You find out how dumb and lazy your friends and family can be, and making those issues less stressful costs money. Having to pay a mandatory donation for the services of the church's wedding planner. She probably took a total of about 5 minutes to schedule the ceremony, and that was it. Also, the photographer. Service wasn't great. Photos turned out okay, but we didn't even get prints of all the proofs. Yeah, a lot of things in a way. I wanted to elope or have a tiny registry office ceremony. My husband wanted a wedding and his family did give us quite a lot of money towards it, so that's what we ended up doing. We overfed our guests, so a lot of food didn't get eaten. I still have most of our wedding cake in the freezer. I could have gotten a much smaller one. I got my dress for around £700 including alterations, and I did love it, but now that lives in a closet. I got caught up in the enthusiasm of the bridal store when I was planning a wedding by myself and no one else seemed to care. Though I did at least buy my veil from Amazon. £10. Instead of a bridal store. £100. The thing is, for a big wedding with lots of guests, I wouldn't have done it any differently, but I would have definitely considered just a small ceremony with immediate family and worked out how to celebrate with everyone else later. I didn't get to spend any quality time with guests anyway because I was constantly rushing between them. So why invite them all? That was with just 65 guests. I can't imagine what it's like with these huge 100+ person weddings. My wedding ring, because I hate the feeling of jewelry and have never worn it. Rest of the wedding was cheap though, about $1,000 for everything. We bought a $15 dress from Walmart. We don't need debt to be the first thing we do together as a married couple. Of course she still only wore it once cause it got stained pretty bad after the honeymoon. $30 wedding rings total. Tattoos. However much it cost for a wedding license. Parents paid to rent tables, chairs and a tent. $500. Had a wonderful backyard wedding in a clearing in the woods. So biggest cost would be the 2 kids we had before marriage, lol. We all know what you really meant. No need to hide it. My shoes. I spent the day before the wedding dragging him to every shoe store on Maui. Took them off after we got to the beach for the ceremony. We eloped. Sunset on the beach on Maui. Hired an amazing wedding coordinator who did all the work. We brought our clothes and rings. She did the rest. He's still mad about those dang shoes. Still married 23 years later. I have her number for any of you that are sick of the planning. Remember your shoes. The decorations. We had special seats for us but were uncomfortable. We sit with our friends. Also my wife panicked last minute with the guest list and order another 30 seats that went unused. The free help I got from my mom AMD her useless friends. The venue was a friend of a friend's ranch. They messed up my chocolate fountain and complained about everything. The photographer friend was downing beers while snapping pics of us. And the supposed wedding planner fainted in the 85-degree heat. Then they made us all clean up the venue and put away chairs and tables at the end of the night. We were going to do that the next day. Upgrading the decorations. They show them to you side by side so you see how the cheap ones look crap but the people at the wedding only get to see the ones you choose and have nothing to compare it to. Same reason shops put cheap TVs next to the expensive ones. My dress. It was on sale for maybe $700. I should have waited and gotten one of these pretty $100 to $150 dresses that I keep seeing. You only wear it once. And I didn't pay for them, but I would have had different bridesmaids dresses. Instead of them forced all the same, I should have asked them to buy a sundress in my wedding color, navy. Send a picture for approval so no duplicates or trashy choices. My wife and I are big foodies, and our wedding had food stations all around it. Think of it like a buffet, except instead of one table there's several, scattered in literally every corner of the room except near the dance floor. Everyone told us we wouldn't get to eat, but we had a truly awesome wedding planner and she made sure both my wife and I got to try every single thing, except the fricking pasta bar. We had a custom pasta bar set up, where you could pick your pasta, sauce, and add-ons, i.e. chicken, olives, spinach, etc. And a dude would cook it all up in a pan. A pasta version of an omelette station. When our wedding planner made our plates, the line was already long for the pasta bar, and she also didn't know what we wanted. So she said she'd get us something later, and we were fine with that. Except I never got a chance to go over to the pasta bar and order my pasta. I've been married for nearly 4 years now, and I'm still sad about it. The food was outstanding. The wedding was an absolute blast, and in general that's one of the best days of my life. But forever, I'll always wonder about the chicken carbonara with black olives that never was. Just the tag wedding on any item or service increases the price x10. I would never do a wedding again. We went to the Justice of the Peace and then did a ceremony 3 months later. We should have just had a big barbecue and saved ourselves a lot of money and undue stress. There was so much money wasted on things that are meaningless even a few months down the line. I don't think we really wasted any money. We didn't get anything we didn't want to. We used or enjoyed everything we did get. We didn't pay an outrageous price for anything. We came in under our budget. Nope. Everything was pretty much perfect. Actually, one thing we spent money on that I wasn't as sure about at first was the bonfire. They said we could pay to have a bonfire set up after the reception was over for people to hang out at and have fun and all that. Turned out to be a real blast that all our guests enjoyed. I wasn't even there for that long because my wife and I were so tired, but I'm so happy everyone else got so much out of it. A lot of people say unequivocally that all weddings are a waste of money or that a dress is a waste of money or whatever. As long as you want it and can afford it, I don't think it's a waste. Do what you want because it's what you want. My wife wanted a dress so we got a dress, but we didn't spend thousands of dollars of it. I wanted to look dang good in a suit so we rented some nice ones. We were also smart and picked a place that was really reasonably priced, came with a lot of stuff included in the price, and handled a lot of the organization and coordination for us. Less stress is priceless. It's not a waste if you enjoyed it and paid a fair price for it. Nothing about my wedding was a waste of money. Got married at a sandals resort in Jamaica. We spent approx $3,500 including airfare. 1 week there, all inclusive, flowers, wedding cake, video, photographer, reception, music, etc. They even gave us free Royal Doulton china. The video and photos were excellent quality. The photographer gave us all the negatives, before digital, LOL, so that we could have copies made. 14 of our family members flew out there, including my 88-year-old grandmother, and everyone had a blast. 18 years later and my mom still comments on how that was the best wedding she'd been to. Old wedding DJ checking in. The most important expense for any wedding is the photographer. Period. End of discussion. It's not the venue. It's not the food. It's not the booze. It's not the time of year. It's not even the dress, which I know is blasphemy to a lot of women. It's the photographer. If you cheap out on this, you will regret it. Weddings last one day. The memory of that day will eventually fade as well. Good photos last a lifetime. Nothing is more important than finding a photographer with actual talent who has actually done weddings before. Your aunt's best friend with who got a nice DSLR camera for Christmas and who likes to take photos is not a freaking wedding photographer, and you will get trash photos. Wedding photography is as much about people wrangling and paying attention to what is going on as it is the ability to frame a photo and press a button. That takes people skills and a certain eye for details. Once you set a date and think you have found an acceptable venue for that date, the very next thing you do is lock down a photographer. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.